So I absolutely loved You Season 4 Part 2. I just thought it was so good. First of all, Penn Badgley is the most talented actor out there, as he just carries this show so well. And you're just so connected with him as Joe Goldberg, especially because of his inner monologue. I just feel like it's such a brilliant touch in this film. And spoiler warning, as we are going to be talking about a lot of big things that take place in Season 4 Part 2. The first one, of course, is the disassociation. I thought that twist was just so brilliantly executed. Very Fight Club in terms of this guy is just an imagination and doesn't really exist, but does exist in the mind of the main lead character. I thought it was absolute genius, and it really does retain the main show's core in that Joe Goldberg really is this awful serial killer, which I know a lot of people had issues with the first part as it was just turning into a bit of a different show. I kind of liked it. I personally love murder mysteries, and it was really interesting to have that within a made in Chelsea expensive rich people lifestyle in England. And I just thought, it did have the fabric of You underneath it all as well. But part 2, in particular with episode 8, where they did reveal the killer twist, I just thought it was absolute genius. Both episode 6 in terms of revealing the twist about the disassociation, but also in episode 8, where they reveal that, Joe Goldberg hasn't been good this whole time. And we get the cage back. It all honestly just came together so perfectly. And I thought it played pretty realistically, actually, as in the end of the 3rd season, you do get to see that, Joe is trying really, really hard to redeem himself. And you are kind of believing in the first part that he is going down that path. And maybe, that part of his brain really did want to do this as well. But he does have this evil, dark side to him. And he just wants to wipe that side out of him. But actually, this is just his dark side, and it does come out to play. And he does blank out whenever this happens. It reminded me a lot, actually, of Oscar Isaac's brilliant performance in Moon Knight, when, there are different personalities within his one body. And it did kind of feel like that, especially when it was pictorially represented via Rhys Montrose, who he has been secretly obsessed with. Honestly, I feel like it all just came together so perfectly. Especially, like I said, people were complaining a lot about the first part, and I'm sure that the writers, creators, producers, directors all realize that, people are going to be a little bit miffed when they see the first part. But I feel like with the second part, they just really did bring back everything. For example, the box, the cage, the obsessiveness. So not only was it a girl this time, but he was also obsessed with Rhys Montrose, who was trying to become the new mayor in London, and he is the personification of his dark side. Literally absolute genius. And then when he does eventually come face to face with the real Rhys Montrose, obviously his good side doesn't realize that his dark side, the personification, is the one that he has been speaking to, and the real Rhys Montrose doesn't even know who he is. And from a psychology perspective, I feel like it asks the audience some really interesting questions, like, can you really escape who you are? And what does it mean to fully embrace who you are? Which he does do right in the final moments of the season, but I will come back to that in a minute. Now, briefly going back to part 1, I personally, like I said before, really liked the fact that they had a bit of a murder mystery thing going on with all of these characters within the You world. And I love the text exchange, this mysterious text app that Rhys is taunting Joe with, and then Joe, along with the audience, has to work out which one of these characters is the real murderer. But then you find out in part 2 that it has actually been Joe all along. Honestly, I thought it was just executed so well, especially when they do all of the flashbacks to how Joe killed all of those people and then just clearly forgot about it, blanked it out, imagined it was somebody else, and then blamed somebody else, and then just created this whole storyline for himself. A little bit like Memento, actually, from Christopher Nolan. Honestly, it just played out so well. And then the reveal that actually he trapped Marianne through his dark side the whole time. I didn't even realize. Honestly, I just thought that twist was so good in episode 8. And then when Joe is able to put all of the jigsaw pieces together and realize everything that is going on, honestly, this then turns him into a depressed person. And I think his depression storyline just played out so well, as he just hates the person that he is becoming, and he really does hate his dark side, and then sees the only path forwards for himself is suicide, which was just so painful to watch. But I feel like his depression arc was actually playing out pretty realistically. It wasn't just, a storyline that they were just tagging on for this character. I feel like because you've been with Joe for so long and you've been in his head for 4 seasons, you can actually understand why and how he's going down this path. And like I said, it was just so painful to watch when he literally did jump off a bridge. And as you are with him, when he jumps into the ocean, I thought it was really interesting how he was narrating the fact that, people who do this apparently instantly regret it, which you can hear him doing as well. But of course, he is the main lead character, so they can't really kill him off. And so even though it was predictable, I feel like it was surprising in a bit of a shocking way when he then just wakes up in the hospital bed. And I loved how they brought back Guinevere Beck as well as Love Quinn in his dream sequences. I thought that was really, really brilliant, and it really does show that this guy really is going through a lot of madness. I wonder what they're going to do with the Kate relationship with him and Joe. Of course, they're probably not going to go down the road that they did with Love Quinn in terms of, Kate becoming a bit of a murderer and a bit of an equivalent to him. And now that actually she is really rich and powerful and really independent as well, I feel like if anything, actually, she has a lot more qualities like Beck. But of course, Marianne is in the background there too. We will talk about Marianne in a minute. But I am really excited and intrigued to see what the future is going to hold for Joe and Kate. I think Tilly Keeper did such a fantastic job playing Lady Phoebe. I feel like you really are connected to her as well. And especially because she goes through a lot of craziness, especially after the PTSD that she experiences when she gets kidnapped, nearly killed, and is just so petrified for her life, and then is in a state of confusion, which actually Adam massively takes advantage of. And I thought this was really interesting social commentary and a really interesting lesson that people can learn. When you are in a state of vulnerability, you need to be really careful about the people that you let into your life, as they may well take advantage of you, which Adam clearly was doing, as he wanted to just steal all of Phoebe's money. I thought Adam becoming a bit of an evil character was a bit unexpected, but it was really believable at the same time, as literally he had hit rock bottom and so will do anything, as he was such a rich social climber, to try to get back to that position. I thought it was a bit of a wasted opportunity that they killed Adam off screen, and that Joe didn't do anything with it, as it was a bit of a wasted opportunity, especially as Kate was telling Joe how awful and evil this guy is. But that being said, when Joe kills off Kate's father and his bodyguard, I feel like, okay, now you really are going back to the fabric of this show and to the roots of this show as well, and it really did hark back to the first season in so many different ways, which was a really brilliant touch. I thought the character of Nadia was really, really good, especially as she was able to work out everything, as she is a bit of a crime mastermind. And I thought it was really, really sad, actually, that she was then framed for the murder as Joe has returned to his dark and evil side. And I feel like Nadia reminded me a lot, actually, of Jenna Ortega's brilliant Ellie character. So she really just was the British version of her. I thought Tati Gabrielle was absolutely magnificent as Marianne. I wasn't too keen on her in season 3, as there was little to no chemistry between Marianne and with Joe. However, in season 4, she was so good, so brilliant, so believable. You can just see her becoming mad, being trapped in this box, being away from her daughter, being willing to kill Joe for her daughter, the mastermind plan that she came up with. It was a little bit predictable that those text messages weren't really from her friend and was a bit of a stage scenario between her and Nadia. But it did play out really, really well. And I just have to say, Tati Gabrielle really did give it and just really did bring it. And she just acted so amazingly. And I love the fact that they brought back the box. I mean, it was really unfortunate that she was in there, but it was just so brilliant, as the cage is such an iconic part of this series. And it was really, really brilliant to see it once again. And I feel like you could physically see her degradation as a character too. And it just came across on screen so well. And I am really glad that, she was able to survive it all. She was able to be revived by Nadia. And then also is able to go back to her daughter and is still out there. So could potentially come back, especially as she is now seeing that, Joe is getting away with it seemingly with a future life with Kate. And on that point, I thought it was really, really interesting actually that he is now returning and fully embracing his dark, evil, sociopathic side, and has that really sinister, evil, massive smile at the end of this series, which really does return this character back to his glory days in the first season and the second season, as he did try to kill himself and is now coming back even more evil and more bad than before. And speaking of Kate, she is now probably one of the most richest people in the entire country, as she now has all of her father's assets, and so now has all this power, all this money. I just wonder what it will mean for the future of her and Joe. Maybe they will have a bit of a happily ever after and they could be the perfect couple for each other, as she does accept him for the person that he is. I just cannot wait for season 5, as it has the potential to be absolutely brilliant. As firstly we have Joe back to his evil self, we have a brilliant partner for him, somebody that he is really obsessed with, and now that she has a lot of power and a lot of money, a lot of evil people will want to be around her, which obviously gives Joe a lot of ammunition and a lot of potential targets for him to go after in season 5. Honestly, season 5 has the potential to be one of the best seasons ever, but I am sure that it probably will be the final season, and maybe all of the past characters will return to ultimately get their revenge on Joe Goldberg once and for all. But honestly, I absolutely loved season 4 as a whole, in particular part 2, which was just so clever. Twist after twist after twist, so many brilliant characters, so many brilliant scenes. We're literally hooked throughout. I was able to binge it straight away as it was just so addictive. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a massive 7.5 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear what you thought of You Season 4 Part 2, so let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.